A lot of people said, this was the only time that they'd ever really seen up until this point our brilliant monarch, Queen Elizabeth II, visibly moved and upset. But what really did do that to her to make us so moved? As ever, let me explain. Morning, good to see you. Thank you so much. Are you all right today? I'm not bad, thank you. By the way, I wanted to share this lovely story with you simply because I don't know if you know, I did a lot of work with the American Embassy for quite a long time, in fact, and we used to train people that used to come to the studio to appear. They were the ambassadors around the world, and these were very hard-working ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, because they uprooted their lives to go and live in wherever they were sent to be for around about 4 years, sometimes even more. So you can understand it's a big pull, isn't it, away. My job really was to prepare them to go on TV for interviews and all that sort of stuff, documentaries, whatever they were representing the country of. The ambassadorial role was really hard, I felt that they put a lot into it. And I was so lucky to actually also work partly in the original Grosvenor Square American Embassy. It was wonderful to go in there, knowing all the history that was there. I also still work occasionally in the American Embassy in Vauxhall, but it doesn't have the same glamour. Is it me, or is it just things of, it's very nice, it's very slick. Oh, when you go in there, absolutely wonderful place, but it's just not the same. Maybe it's the history that hasn't arrived there yet. But it was there, and actually at the original embassy, where I met this man. That's right, Charles H. Price II. Now, he was a fascinating guy because obviously he was an ambassador during the reign of Ronald Reagan. I don't mean reign, but presidency, Now, I kind of, as I said to you before, was fascinated by Ronald Reagan as a child because I thought, well, he's an actor, and suddenly now he's become the most powerful man in America, in the world, in fact, the president of the United States. And I think that helped him a lot, simply because he knew how to deliver to camera, good-looking guy, suave, all that sort of stuff, and a very genteel sort of background too. He's been very lucky to meet quite a few presidents, including Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama, who also came to the studio just ahead of him becoming president. He came over to make a program for NBC. Incredible when you think, because you literally looking at people making history and will go down in history. But Charles H. Price really was a wonderful character because his background, he'd had a lot of experience in all sorts of different stuff. What I found fascinating about him was the fact that he told me just over coffee in the green room how he'd been part of something really magical, if you like, and a huge part of history. And that was he attended the funeral alongside the British monarchy of Wallis Simpson. That's right, of Edward and Mrs. Simpson fame. And as he pointed out, it was part of the duty of his role at that point. You see, Charles had, as I say, an illustrious career, also delving into directorship for British Airways, many different things. And he'd done so many things that he was a fascinating man to sit and talk to. And I asked him, and I've got the tape now, and I asked him and I said, what was it like, being there, as you can imagine, because Wallis Simpson had really sunk out of trace at that particular point, following really the death of the king, Edward. And the bottom line was, as he said, not many people really saw her. She became something of a recluse. So when she was brought back over here to the United Kingdom for her funeral at St. George's Chapel at Windsor, he said, well, literally everybody was there, the Princess Royal, Princess Anne. The only people that didn't attend apparently were Prince Edward and the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, simply because they had no sort of memory or recollection of her, really, never met her, that sort of stuff. But as he pointed out, what was fascinating was the Queen was visibly moved at her passing. And he was told, and this is directly from him to me, that the reason why apparently she was moved was the fact that he'd given up so much. She didn't necessarily take the view of her mother, the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth. She basically said, no, this was something of a story, because apparently, according to him, Wallis, you see, had got into quite a bit of financial difficulties and was selling all sorts of things behind the scenes, jewels, all that type of stuff. But she never, ever, even though he said she was offered literally in today's money millions of pounds to reveal all about how the royal family had treated her, whether that be in a documentary, a sit down before she lost all of those faculties. He said she just said no, and this kept going back to the Queen, the royal family. They were so relieved because they didn't necessarily need that bad PR. And as you can imagine, in that time, with so few channels, it would have been an explosive interview. The only interview she wanted to do and give a sit down apparently was all about him and, you know, what he did with his life and how she felt it was a life worth living. Apparently the reason why she turned the money down was she said, I've had everything I could possibly want and more. It's been a very fulfilled life. Don't feel sorry for me. I don't need the money. And Charles told me that that was really the reasoning behind it. He believed why the royal family finally embraced her towards the end. He did tell me one interesting piece though, because he said that the Right Honourable British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher was also in attendance, and she apparently was visibly moved as well. He said he'd never seen the Iron Lady cry or anything like that, you know. And what he also pointed out was, he said the thing was that the reason he felt that both these ladies were crying is they were from a generation that truly believed in love, saw it through regardless, no matter what, you didn't give in. And apparently, according to Margaret Thatcher, the Queen Mother had been advised to stay away by the Queen because as she pointed out, you can't win either way. If you turn up, it looks bad, and if you stay away, it looks bad. Best to stay away, then there's only that one option. And so, on a very rare moment of listening, of course, and having the power over her mother, the Queen Mother decided not to attend the funeral of Wallis Simpson. A fascinating insight to someone that was actually there when you think about it. And as I say, Charles H. Price II, what a life he led. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.